Hi everybody, my name is Linda Bonner. I'm currently undertaking a diploma in positive psychology through the Positive Psychology Guild. And today I'd love to share with you my findings from my recent research project on motivation and flow in marathon runners. So considering the time that we have for today, there are just three main objectives that I'd love to dig into. We're going to begin by describing self-determination theory. We'll take a look at the role that flow plays in motivating marathon runners, and we'll wrap up by evaluating if we can experience flow and joy simultaneously while running a marathon. So let's take a look at self-determination theory first. Self-determination theory is a theory of human motivation and personality. It's created by Deci and Ryan back in the early 1970s. Now, self-determination itself refers to a person's own ability to manage themselves, to make confident choices, and to think on their own. It's important because it assumes that autonomous motivation is important in all of this. Now, self-determination theory also suggests that people are able to become more self-determined when three innate and universal psychological needs are met, namely autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And we can see how all of this then starts to relate to positive psychology, because when we're pursuing those goals that we're intrinsically motivated to go after and achieve, when we feel we have the skills to do so, and we're in an environment that makes us feel included, we have this sense of belonging, our well-being and our happiness naturally increases. If we take a closer look then at these three basic psychological needs of self-determination theory, and particularly how they relate to marathon runners. So we have the level of control that the runner experiences, the choice, the skills, and again, the environment that they're in. Now, there's a number of different factors then that could equally enhance these basic psychological needs or undermine them. And if we look at having control in the situation, an athlete will experience greater levels of autonomy when they have choice, expression of feelings, explanation of training plans, for example, compared to threats, deadlines, and excessive control. The same with competence, optimal challenge compared to excessive challenge, positive versus negative feedback and performance, and the environment that the athlete is in as well. Now, while this is obviously important for an individual marathon runner, it can become even more important for an athlete who is training under the care of a coach or in a running club. And we saw a prime example of this recently, where Coach Alberto Salazar from the Nike Oregon project was removed from his post because of multiple allegations by US elite athletes towards him, saying that Salazar had excessive control over training plans, over food that was eaten, even over the athletes' bodies. But what could possibly motivate a runner? What could motivate someone to lace up and run 26.6 miles or 42.2 kilometers? Well, the motivation of marathon scale, or MOMS as it's called in the research, highlights four main factors for us: achievement, psychological, physical, and social. Now, while there's currently a gap in the research around non-elite, non-binary runners and what motivates them, there is plenty of research and evidence to support that there's a clear divide between what motivates male and female non-elite marathon runners. So women are more motivated by the social, psychological, and physical benefits of running a marathon, whereas the men are more motivated by the sense of achievement or competition, which is really interesting to see. And this brings us to the second part of today on flow. So we'll start by taking a look at the 9 components of flow as identified by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And we'll start off with the first 3 components are flow, are those proximal conditions. And I put in the inverted U theory of performance here because it relates then to SDT that we just had a look at as well. So there's this prime part of an athlete's training where when there's optimal pressure, the athlete performs at their best. But it's a fine line, and beyond that fine line, the athlete is more likely to experience high stress, anxiety, and unhappiness. And that's exactly what we saw happening for those athletes under the care of Coach Alberto Salazar in the Nike Oregon project. Unambiguous feedback is obviously really important as well. And then we have the 6 process outcomes of flow. And I love number 9, that intrinsic motivation, that flow begins and ends with a love for what you're doing, a love for your sport, a love for your running. Now, naturally, of course, this got me thinking of how do these 9 components of flow affect marathon runners of different abilities? So we've got US marathon elite runner Jordan Hussey here in the center, intermediate marathon runner myself here, top right-hand corner, having run 30 marathons to date. And then we have my friend Amy in the left-hand corner, who's getting ready to run her first marathon. Now, the research will tell us that the 9 components of flow can indeed be present for our athletes or for a marathon runner, but they will vary. They'll be present at various degrees, perhaps throughout the race, most likely depending on the runner's ability and experience. So the goals are still there, but Jordan Hussey's goal of her world record is very different to Amy's of just finishing of my 3:30. The challenge skill balance is still there as well, the feedback. And then components 4, 5, and 6, it's interesting because they seem to increase with experience. So Jordan Hussey is more likely to have greater control over her mind and her thoughts as she runs compared to Amy and on myself because of that sense of experience. My interest peaked then around component number 7 and this whole loss of self-consciousness, because for an athlete like Hussey, there's a lot more hanging on the line. There's $1 million sponsorship deals. And so is she really less self-conscious? Or perhaps even more so because of what's at risk if she doesn't get that world record. The distortion of time is also really interesting as well. And again, Amy and I would be delighted to realize if we looked at our watches and 10 kilometers has just passed and it felt like 2 minutes. But if you're like Jordan Hussey and you're chasing your world record, surely you want to be aware of what you're doing every second of that race. And again, when you love it, the more you love it, the more you do of it as well. So then how does flow affect motivation of marathon runners? And the research or all these athletes will tell us the same story. It's better emotional regulation. So again, that sense of control, enjoyment, fulfillment. Athletes who experience flow have a greater sense of motivation then to overcome challenges that can come up. So they're able to course correct more quickly and more effectively. Engagement, not just improved performance, but flow has been known to actually facilitate peak performance, competition and feedback. And then I love this idea of the team-based contagion effect, that running with a fellow country person or team member can actually motivate you to keep going when the going gets tough. Now I put a little star here beside greater enjoyment and fulfillment because that leads us ever so beautifully into part 3 for today, running joyfully in flow. Here we've got another fantastic female marathon runner, Caitlyn Goodman. Not only is she famous for running marathons in fantastic times, but Goodman even is also famous for creating the mantra run joyfully. So when we pose this question of can a marathon runner experience flow and joy simultaneously, some flow researchers will say no, whereas some marathon runners such as Goodman will say yes. And Goodman will actually go further to say it's a necessity. In order to get into that state of flow, she has to love what she's doing. And she has to love what she's doing in order to do really well. But why can we not? What's behind what the researchers tell us that we can't actually do this? And again, there are 3 points of research that I'd love to share with you here. The first one is that all our attention is focused on the task at hand. So it's unlikely if a marathon runner experiences an emotion during the marathon, it's more likely to be curiosity rather than joy, because the part of our brain that processes emotions is very busy while we're running a marathon. And when it's actually got its calorie supply is shunted dealing with all the running, so it's not able to process those emotions. The second reason then is THT, which again, how the brain responds to heavy demands. And as the demands get greater, such as running a marathon, the brain slowly downregulates non-essential functions. This happens about 30 minutes into running a marathon for your regular marathon runner. The third part then is the idea of flow being effortless is partly an illusion, right? I mean, we hear marathon runners, I'll even say the same thing, that, oh yes, in that moment, it feels effortless when everything clicks and you're in the zone and you're getting that feedback and it feels effortless. But ask any marathon runner afterwards and they'll tell you, if anything, it's an effortful activity. And of course, then this led me to question and get curious about my own experience. And I applied all of the research and the knowledge and all my learnings from this particular project to my recent marathon in Philadelphia. And when I looked at my stats from running that race, the times when I'm running the quickest are the times when I'm around the crowd. The crowd are cheering me on. It's like I'm being pulled on by that energy, the social contagion, the team contagion that we mentioned earlier. But I'm very conscious of what I look like as I'm running that marathon. So ergo, am I experiencing flow at the same time and being joyful of people cheering my name and really being pulled along? The second part then, when I'm running my quickest is when I am in the zone. I have that mantra of quick feet, quick feet, quick feet. I am very aware of what my body is doing, how my arms are swinging, how my feet are hitting the pavement. And everything just seems to work, and it is fantastic. The third part of this then is, and here's where positive psychology plays an imperative role for me, because one of my top signature character strengths is appreciation of excellence and beauty. And at one point in the Philadelphia Marathon, I'm, metaphorically stopped in my tracks because of these incredible trees in the park. And it's almost like appreciation of excellence and beauty actually stopped me in my tracks rather than propel me forward. So can we experience flow and joy simultaneously in running a marathon? I'm not sure, but for me, I honestly don't think so. And then I had the, thinking, putting all of this together and the questions that I was still left with as I started to wrap up this project. And the first one was, a pro marathon runner is more likely to experience flow than regular marathon runners purely because they're professional athletes. Are some people more wired for running flow? And if they are, who are these people? How are they wired? And the third one is it possible to run a marathon completely in a state of flow if all 9 components are present? And I want to leave you then with this beautiful quote that I read from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, or Dr. Mike, as I was doing the research. And as soon as I read it, it triggered all those incredible emotions that I often experience when I think about running a marathon, when I think about exerting myself and, really being challenged and feeling great at the same time. The best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult or worthwhile, just like a marathon. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope that you learned something about running, about motivation and flow in marathon runners. Thank you.